Hello everyone, welcome to a fistful of dice on the go. I'm Matt, and it's cold here in the PNW. We've had freezing temperatures for the last, I don't know, week and a half, and trying to get back in the habit of taking my walks here, so figured I'd make a video while I was doing so. This video is going to be a response to Same Old G's video on bullshitting. And fittingly enough, I'm out walking in true Same Old G style. So let's talk about the concepts of bullshitting and fudging behind the GM screen. Now, what I mean by bullshitting is just that, making things up. Fabricating outcomes, deciding that you don't want something to go a certain way, so you're going to change it without the player's knowledge. And fudging is, of course, rolling one thing and saying another. Now, I have to say that bullshitting and fudging are two very powerful items in a GM's arsenal. Mostly because the GM is God. The GM decides what happens. The GM is the creator and the destroyer. So why shouldn't they be able to bullshit and fudge? Well, there's a spectrum here. On one end, you have the GMs that bullshit and fudge all the time. GMs who roll everything behind the screen, and the players have no idea of what's happening. Now, this GM has complete creative control over their story. They're able to dictate where the PCs go and what happens to them. They completely control the flow of encounters, and puzzles, and dungeons. So yeah, it's useful. But the players don't feel like they have any say. The players don't feel like their actions have any bearing. So they lose out on some of that fun. And at the same time, there's no risk anymore. There's no risk of dying or failing because the GM has complete control. There's a sticky bush in my way. So, why should the players even bother playing? Because the story's going to turn out how the GM wants it to anyway. At the other end of the spectrum, you have the never bullshit GM. You have the GM. Oh, man. It's a dungeon to getting through here. I don't think anyone's walked these paths in a while. You have the GM who rolls everything out in the open, lets the numbers fall where they may, and just lets things happen as they do. Now, this can be fun, because seriously, the dice are controlling the game. The GM sets it up, but the players are at the whim of the dice. There's plenty of risk involved. Things can go horribly awry. But at the same time, the GM has very little control. The GM cannot make a call based on how they want the story to go, how they want the characters to progress. So, what do you do? Well, like most things, I tend to fall in the middle here. If you're going to fudge every single roll and bullshit every single event, why even use dice? Why even game? Why not just sit around and tell a story together? The dice have to come into play somehow. There has to be some sort of risk involved. If there's no risk, there's no fun. But at the same time, the outcome of your campaign, the fate of your party, cannot rest on one die roll, or even two die rolls. I made a video before about taking the numbers out of tabletop, not letting the numbers rule your game. And I stand true to that. You shouldn't let the numbers rule a game, but they have to affect it. Whenever you're rolling those dice behind your screen, or if you don't use a screen, out in the open, when you're rolling those dice, if the players aren't clenching their butt cheeks together in fear, well, it's not very fun, is it? So, you have to find some place in the middle. You have to find a happy medium between bullshitting and being real with your players. But it's true that bullshitting is a very, very useful tool. And bullshitting can apply to things that aren't die rolls either. I mean, let's say you're in a combat and you quickly realize that the combat is taking forever. Taking too long, to the point where the PCs are no longer having fun and you're running out of time in your game session. You could just play it straight, have the PCs fight the monsters as they are, full HP and all, or you could bullshit. You could, all of a sudden, all these monsters have 50 less HP, or all of a sudden, their AC is down by 2. Your players probably won't pick up on this, or if they do, they have no idea why. But the combat goes faster, the combat runs smoother, and you're on to the next thing. So, yeah, bullshitting is a very useful tool. It is a tool that's on the top shelf of the GM's toolbox, but you gotta use it carefully. With great power comes great responsibility. You know what I mean? If you're the GM, you are God. But you gotta make sure your players are having fun too, and that they're being challenged. So, what's your take on bullshitting and fudging rules? Let me know. Alright guys, take it easy, happy gaming.